So UFC 299 is upon us this weekend, and you know what that means. It's time to predict Suga Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, the rematch, the one blemish on an otherwise perfect professional MMA record for Suga Sean, and a loss that he vehemently disputes and says that he is still undefeated, although the record books do not reflect that.
Right.
This is going to be a fun fight. This is a good first title defense for Sean O'Malley, and yes, there are a lot of deserving bantamweights out there. We just saw Merab look excellent against Henry Cejudo. Corey Sandhagen's out there. He's likely going to be taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. But as it sits right now, I think for his first defense, Chito Vera, the opponent that beat him, the only person that's ever beaten him, is the right person to step in there and take this fight. And I want to talk about the specifics because I see this being a very different fight than the Aljamain Sterling fight. I don't think that Chito is going to be looking for takedowns. I think they're both going to be in each other's face from start to finish, whether it's 5 rounds or less. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I love it, and the X's and O's are what really excite me about this. Of course, 299 is an amazing card. It's going to be in a great city. Miami loves their fights, and as of late, it seems to be the most poppin' city in America. So the card's stacked. The main event that it was built around is really stacked, and I'm really excited about this one for a few reasons. Look, Suga Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, and this might be a hot take, but I think he's the most dynamic and innovative striker that we have on the roster right now. I think there's some really great guys out there. Poatan, Israel Adesanya, Leon Edwards. The list goes on, Ilia Topuria. But Suga Sean is doing things that all of those guys are taking and putting into their arsenal. They're adding some of his moves, some of his style, some of his swag into their fight style. And that speaks volumes. When the best in the world are looking at you and saying, hey, I could use a couple of those things, that means you're doing something right. But on the other end, if you ask Chito Vera who the better striker is in this situation, he says him. Look, you can have all the flashy stuff you want, Sean. That's all right. I'm going to come in with really powerful shots, all quality, no quantity. I'm not really going to go in there and waste my time with, peppering shots in here and there. He's a bit of a slow starter, but once he gets going, he's very dangerous to deal with on the feet. I think Chito Vera does a lot of things really well, and although he's a bit more of a stationary target, and Suga's going to be able to use his dynamic footwork and his agility and his just everything about him, his range, deception, all of the stuff that he does so well, is going to be interesting, but it's also going to gas him a little bit. We've seen explosive strikers go in there, Sean himself included, and they don't leave enough gas in the tank by the time the 4th and the 5th round come around because they throw everything at you with high-level explosiveness and just tons of volume, and that usually leaves you with less gas. It's just like somebody who goes out there and tries to shoot for doubles, shoot for singles. It can exhaust you, and as we've seen, Chito Vera doesn't really get tired. He seems to shine brighter and brighter as the rounds go on, and as of right now, it seems to me like Sean O'Malley's getting better as the fights go on, but he shines brightest in the first couple of rounds, which sort of indicate that the 3rd round is going to be very important in this fight. I do think that the middle of this fight is going to sway the direction because if I had to put my money on it, Sean's going to win rounds 1 and 2. And then if I had to put my money on it on another side, I think Chito's going to win rounds 4 and 5, and that leaves the 3rd round to really be one to watch out for. Suga Sean has all the ability in the world to get somebody out of there, but he's not dealing with somebody that's not durable. Chito Vera can take a shot, and he's more than willing to take them so he can land a couple of his own. And as we've seen many times before, Chito Vera hits you a few times, you really start to feel it, and after a while, you turn into a different fighter than the one that you walked in as into the Octagon as.
Yeah, well, just look at the Rob Font versus Chito Vera fight.
Right.
I mean, Rob Font landed almost twice the amount of strikes that Chito Vera landed, and Chito still won the decision victory in that case. So
damage is the king.
Right. Damage is the king, and Chito is the king of damage. He's the guy.
Great.
He's going to be very economical with his strikes, but the ones that he does land are going to hurt you. And believe you me, Chito's going to be looking for that low leg kick again. And so I think a key thing for Sean here is going to be how well does he check those low kicks? Because Chito, and Sean says it was a fluke. It was a perennial nerve. It just deadened the nerve. There's nothing he could do about it. He couldn't put any weight on the leg. But it was a result of a couple of really good kicks by Chito. So there's no reasonable way to say that he can't do that again.
Right.
So Sean certainly has to be vigilant of that. He has to check the leg kicks because Chito's going to be looking for those early and often. Chito's probably going to be the fighter coming forward. Sean's more than likely going to be fighting on the outside, and he's very comfortable doing that because he's good with his feints, and he doesn't feint well just before the combination. What Sean does that a lot of fighters don't do, and it's a very difficult thing to do, is he feints mid-combination.
Yes.
So he'll throw a feint at you, he'll land a couple of shots, and have you standing there. He'll feint again, get a read on you, and land a couple of more. So that's something that he does really well. And when you mention a lot of these other strikers taking a page out of his book, I did see Ilia Topuria do some things like that when he fought Volkanovski and in some fights leading up to his title run. So it's something that's very difficult to master. Chito doesn't really do that. Chito is a meat and potatoes striker. He's 1 and 2 straight down the pipe. He's high kick. He's leg kick. He's come forward. He's hurt you, and that's the way he fights.
Yep.
And Chito's the kind of guy, too, that, as you said, he's very durable.
Yeah.
So I do see this fight going to decision. And I'm very much in agreement with you that Sean O'Malley, I would almost be willing to put all my money on the fact that he's going to win the first round and probably the second round. And if Chito's around for the 4th and 5th, which I think he will be, Sean will likely be a little bit compromised as far as cardio is concerned. And Chito's going to have a little bit of a read on some of the feints and some of the stuff that Sean is doing. Yeah. And he's going to have success in rounds 4 and 5. So this fight is really going to be won in the middle rounds. Yeah. And I just... making a prediction, I'm leaning towards Sean O'Malley. Yeah. I think that when you watch the first fight between him and Chito, he was really starting to find his stride, land a lot of great shots. You know, if you go back to look for great striking highlights from Chito in that first fight, you really only see the leg kick that basically was the beginning of the end for the fight. You don't see really any highlights of Chito piecing Sean up. You see just the opposite of that. And I think Sean is dialed in for this one. He's coming into his own. He's 29 years old now. He's the champion. He walks with that air of confidence like the champion walks with. This is a different Sean O'Malley than the one that fought Chito Vera the first time. And while I do think Chito's going to have some success in rounds 4 and 5, and Sean's going to have to dig deep between minute 16 and minute 25, I think he's going to do enough in the first 15 minutes to get those 3 rounds. And so I see Sean winning a close decision victory, and it's because of the work he does early.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to go all 5 rounds as well, and for 2 different reasons. I think Sean is very good at evading strikes. He's very good at fighting, moving backwards and laterally, and Chito's so damn tough. He's so damn durable. He's not easy to get out of there.
Right.
So Suga Sean's going to have to bring a barrage of strikes early on, and then he's going to have to play a little bit more of a defensive Floyd Mayweather-esque style fight. He's going to have to touch and move, and stay away. But optics can play a role in fights, and in judging, more importantly. Right. They can definitely play an optics, or they can play a role. Look, if Chito Vera goes out there and he's, for the last 10 minutes of the fight, is walking Sean down, and Sean seems to be running away, it's not going to look great in the judge's eyes. That's why I see him getting those 2 rounds, the late rounds for Chito. But if Suga's able to not look just like Ian Gary when he was fighting Jeff Neal and running away, but if he's able to stay offensive and stay active in those later rounds, even if he is just touching, it's going to end up being a different style of fight that he has in the late rounds that he has in the beginning rounds. He's going to have to push the pace early on, and then he's going to be able to fight on his back foot, fight moving laterally for the later parts of the fight. He's so evasive. He's so hard to pin down in the striking realm, right? A lot of people love to back you up against the cage and then start to work up against the cage, whether it's in the clinch, whether it's just, cutting you off with angles. And Sean O'Malley's really good at not letting that happen. And it's very tricky because oftentimes the pressure fighter controls the center of the octagon, and that's important for them. And that's usually how they get themselves in the position to narrow somebody off and cut them off up against one of the panels of the cage. But Sean is so good at evading strikes that he doesn't let himself get within 1 or 2 feet of the cage. He'll evade, he'll make you think that you're really close to the cage, and then some of that lateral footwork and some of those almost like football style juke moves will leave you stuck somewhere, and that opens up the rest of the cage and obviously the center of the octagon for him to go back to and reset, gain his composure, and then move back in with some more attacks, and then ultimately find more space to run some more. I think all of that is really important in Sean's keys to victory. If he doesn't keep Chito off of him in the later parts of the fight, it's going to be hard. And I'm not saying Sean's not a durable guy. We've only seen him lose one time. It was to this man, Chito Vera, and it wasn't because he just got beat up. It's because, I'm not going to call it a fluke injury, but damage happened in a rare place. It was a unique style strike that ended the fight or started the beginning of the end. And, Chito Vera said, look, he was asleep when I was elbowing him in his face. So say what you want about the kick. I did damage. I got him on the ground, and then I beat him up bad. Yeah. So Sean's really going to look to avoid the ground at all costs because Chito's ground and pound is just like his striking on the feet. It's very vicious. He doesn't throw a bunch of nonsense at you. He's throwing meat and potatoes, high-quality shots, and they do a ton of damage. And optically, they can cut you open. They can make you look really bad. And the judges, they see that. I don't think Florida has bad doctors and bad judging and all that, but you never know. A bad cut can always lead to a slippery slope out of the fight. So I think Suga Sean O'Malley really does have to avoid all of those power shots early. He's got to get Chito Vera feeling like he's fighting from behind, and that will leave Chito Vera a bit more exposed when he comes in on his attacks. And as we've seen, Sean is an absolute sniper. He knows how to find his target, whether it's moving forward on you and throwing those mid-combination feints and basically having you guessing where he's going, and then he kind of gets the dealer's choice of where he's going to put his shot. While he's good at doing that, he's also really good at landing those rangy strikes while he's moving back, which is a rare thing. It's more difficult than it appears on TV. He's a master at it. I think Chito Vera has his hands full with this one. And just like you, I'm going decision. I'm going Suga Sean O'Malley. I think he's going to look good early on. If you watch his vlog, if you watch Tim Welch and those guys on YouTube, when they're getting ready for the fight, they're showing you little glimpses of his striking and his camp go. He looks really sharp, and they're saying he's spending like 25, 30 minutes at a time at 90% of his max heart rate. So I think Sean's going to come in well gassed. I think he's going to be able to stay composed. The Miami crowd's going to be loud. He's got ice running through his veins. I don't really see that being a factor. If it's a factor for anybody, it's going to be Chito. I think he's going to feel a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because the Miami crowd's going to be pro Suga. But this is going to be an amazing fight. Amazing first title defense for Suga Sean O'Malley, and I see him getting his hand raised 3-2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the Miami crowd is going to be very Latino heavy. So yeah. I think it's going to be a little bit more split than you might think. I think it's going to be 50-50. I think there's going to be some people that show up there really rooting on Chito Vera.
Maybe I'm just thinking about the Nelk boys and Steve will do it.
They're going to be.
Yeah, for every 10 Latinas that are up in the crowds cheering for Chito, one Steve will do it, will max their volume.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one more thing, and I don't really think it's going to be a factor in this fight, but I want to see if you think it might be. Okay. Chito Vera has more victories by submission than he does by knockout, and you wouldn't normally think that when you watch Chito fight because he's such a stand in front of you, let's bite down on the mouthpiece and bang sort of fighter, but he does have a really good submission game. Yep. Do you see Chito, if things start to go sour on the feet, looking for a takedown and potentially a submission here?
Well, I think the mindset is really important in this, and like I said at the beginning of the video, Chito Vera thinks he's a better striker than Sean O'Malley. And you kind of have to go into a fight thinking, right, like, I can beat this guy doing what he does best. I'm not going to try to go hold him down on the ground. And also, holding Suga Sean on the ground is much easier said than done. Right. I think Sean O'Malley is one of the most underrated grapplers in the entire UFC. I think his scramble ability, his ability to wrestle out of things, and his takedown defense is underrated. It's overlooked, and people need to start realizing that just because he doesn't have to go to the ground that much doesn't mean he's not a good grappler. It just shows you how good his defense is, how good his range is, and the way he's able to maintain the fight, engage on his terms, and take the fight where he wants it is more impressive. And it's, like I said, it's easier said than done. Like, he goes out there and he makes it look easy, but it's certainly not an easy thing that he's doing.
Yeah, I don't see it being much of a factor, and I see Chito wanting to beat Sean at what Sean does best, as you said, on the feet. So my decision, final decision, 48-47, 3-2. Sean O'Malley's going to still be the champion come end of 299.